Part 46. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 452. 452 Destroyed Silver Corpses. The silver corpse came out of the wind blade, with contempt in his eyes. The violent silver corpse did not end with walking out of the wind blade, and in his eyes, all creatures should be killed and destroyed. Roar, silver corpse screamed, untied a piece of yellow paper sticking to his belly, stuffed the yellow paper into his mouth, chewed a few mouthfuls, and slammed in the direction of Howling Wolf King. Opening his mouth, the boundless black corpse spit out, the corpse swelled, and the more spit, the more he wanted to enclose the entire Xiaofeng Wolf King and the wind blade Quangtao he displayed. Play a spell with Laozi. You're still tender, Yekong sighed angrily, and raised his hand to take out a woolly curse. Burst, the woolly curse fell in the center of the corpse gas, and then exploded with a click, turning into 5 blue and white electric snakes, instantly dissipating the corpse gas surrounding the Xiaofeng Wolf King. Since Xiaofeng Wolf King is not an opponent, it is useless to place it outside. Yekong shook the 100 souls in his hands, and the Wolf King immediately turned into a blue-white light group and collected it. Seeing his corpse was broken, and the silver corpse was annoyed, he kept roaring, as a sign of his inner anger. His blood-red eyes looked at Yekong coldly, as if to tear the other person apart. Who? Silver corpse lifted the second yellow note on his belly again. As soon as he rubbed his 2 fingers, he saw the yellow note turning into a flame burning at the tip of the finger. The flame was beating. It's black, and there is a kind of stinky stench with abnormal flesh. Silver corpse put this little flame in front of his mouth and blew it hard. Who? A huge black flame rushed towards Yekong and Lu Ying, and then the black flame, which was so stinky, was so hot. This is the corpse fire, Lu Ying screamed in exclamation. She had seen related ancient books and said that the corpse fire was difficult to burn in other places, but on the human or animal body, it was burning more and more. When most people come into contact, they can burn human bones into blood, but their clothes are all right, which is very weird. Play with me, Yekong sneered, and Shen said, you're not good enough. After speaking, he lifted up his hand and took out the water fire gourd, but when the water fire gourd opened his mouth, how much the corpse fire sucked, in a blink of an eye, the corpse fire was absorbed. In fact, Yekongdan wanted to release the cold fire of Kangbei to refine this thing, but in the end it was useless. After all, Lu Ying doesn't necessarily know Gubeo, and it's not the only gourd that can collect water and fire. But the cold fire in the north of Kangkang was too magical. If Lu Ying saw it and spread it out, I was afraid that a group of ancestors would come out to find trouble for themselves, and it was not good for Lu Ying. Seeing that the second piece of paper was also invalid, the silver corpse was really hot. It directly peeled off the rightmost and most powerful piece of yellow paper on the belly. After the last yellow note was cast, I saw a black light enveloping the body of the silver corpse. The black light was heavy and the sight was not visible, but we could see that the black light was expanding, as if it were expanding, and instantly, it was expanding. To Jiangsu's height, it seemed as if a building appeared in front of Yekong. Boom, when the silver corpse suddenly opened his arms and shook the black light, a giant silver corpse appeared like a giant. After being bred by black light, the silver corpse not only became huge, but also changed its appearance. It became darker and fuller, with sharp fangs protruding far away, and its hands and feet became like animal paws. Now, silver corpse is more like a wild beast that has been crazy. Looking at such a scary silver corpse, Lu Ying could not help pulling Yekong back. Suddenly she remembered the heart in the hands of the black-faced monk again, and she hurriedly shouted, swallow it up quickly. Big deal, I will give you back later. Swallowing the heart at this moment is harmless to the monk. Not only can he survive the crisis in front of him, but he can also have a faithful assistant with the strength of Dandan period. If other monks had swallowed it all at once, But Yekong is different. He is a human from the earth. He must not accept human flesh. Big husband, do something and do nothing, never be shaken by danger and temptation. Maybe for Kangnan monks, this kind of adherence is almost ridiculous, but for Yekong, it is his adherence. The bottom line is never back, never change. Even if I die, can't lose face to us. Swallowing people's hearts alive. What's the difference between animals and beasts? Swallowing people's hearts today will be able to drink human blood tomorrow. Those beasts and monsters try every means to cultivate adults. How can I wait for humans to become animals? It will eat. Yekong slammed the heart in his hand to the ground, and the heart suddenly fell into a slump. Hearing the generous words of the black-faced monk in front of him, Lu Ying's heart could not help but swell. This iron-bodied man is so similar to Master Yes 8 Masters, which makes women intoxicated. Still intoxicating her. Yekong broke his heart, and despite his enemies, he stretched out his arms to embrace Lu Ying's thin willow, and bowed his head to kiss the two petal-like moisturizing lips. Lu Ying's eyes widened and she didn't expect the boy to come here at this time, but she thought, well, now that you have reached the end of your life, let's take a closer look at the taste of kissing. Lu Ying figured it out, a pair of beautiful eyes slowly closed, the two arms also wrapped around the empty neck of the leaf like a snake, the sleeves dangled, exposing the two crystallized forearms. Boom. Roar. Oh. Shocking bombardment couldn't stop ringing in their ears, but none of them opened their eyes, and they desperately immersed themselves in this long and warm kiss. The tongues intersect and the tongues are tangled, so that they still don't feel enough. Yekong tightly surrounds Lu Ying's delicate willow waist, and Lu Ying catches Yekong's head tightly. They closed their eyes, their faces swayed slowly back and forth, trying to find an angle where their tongues could penetrate deeper into each other's mouth. Behind the kissing people in the background is a crystal transparent aqua dragon, which knocked over a huge corpse like a diamond in the blood pool, splashing countless gravel and blood. The 3-year battle is not by Lian. Today's Dao is stronger than the original, and it is close to the metamorphosis of the mutant beast. Its power is comparable to that of a newly born monk. When the silver corpse stood up again, Dao's body suddenly rose a few feet again, then twisted the dragon body, rushed over, like a python to encase a huge zombie. Suddenly, Titan. Stretch your head and tail. Yeah, silver corpse finally couldn't resist this brute force, and it was cut into pieces by the big jade stupidly. All the flesh of the zombies was thin, and the bones of the zombies were all shattered. This was not enough. Dao threw the large dragon tail again and took all the corpses so thin that the ground seemed to be covered with a layer of black-red mud. At this time, in the mud formed by the body, a trace of clear smoke emerged. The clear smoke gradually gathered, and finally turned into a middle-aged figure. This is the monk Jadan who has been refined into a silver corpse. He has just been refined and his soul is still there. If he has been refined for a long time and his soul has dissipated, he can never enter the cycle. He gave a gift to Yekong far away, and then, the clouds disappeared and he was reborn. Compared with Ben Long. You're still tender, Dao snorted abruptly, learning someone's tone, and looked back at someone who hadn't finished kissing. What son, you know pickups. Protesting someone with spiritual knowledge, he then entered the circle of spirit beasts. I don't know how long it took, Lu Ying finally recovered her consciousness in the confusion, and she muttered in her heart, why didn't this zombie jump up? To the reader. Yesterday, the bricks 186 still did not exceed the previous record of 188 last week. Referral tickets are also very important, with the support of Taoists on your computer. Thanks. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 453. 453 Sleeping Beauties. Lu Ying waited for another moment, and then quietly opened her full eyes to a gap, but then, her beautiful eyes opened completely, Shui Lingling's big eyes looked around, and the abominable-looking zombie had disappeared. Where's the zombie? Lu Ying thought questioningly, only to discover that her lips were still sucked tightly by someone. Zombie, where's gone? Lu Ying asked. Yeah. Where did the zombies go? Someone asked knowingly, and then astonished to find the black mud-like zombies on the ground. I guess it must be that it saw such a lingering scene, it felt ashamed, and felt that it would be impossible to see people in the future, so it committed suicide. Ah, I never imagined that the person who was ashamed would be real, someone guessed loudly. I'm almost ashamed, how could it be ashamed? Lu Ying twisted hard and yelled, he, there is no shape. This kiss has completely shortened their distance. The little girl Xiujiao is resentful, her white face flushed, and the more she looks the more she loves. I'm really getting worse. Other ideas on earth bring nothing, and monogamy cannot. Buddy is a hooligan, which rogue has only one wife? Ye Kong kissed Lu Ying's hot and tender cheek again, and then said, actually, the silver corpse has some connection with Zhu Shun's heart, so I broke the heart and the zombie blew up. This explanation is acceptable, but Lu Ying still thinks that things will not be so simple. It must be that this boy has some infamy and he does not want to say it. It seems that he is not so timid and incapable of his imagination. Lu Ying thought of Master 8 again, but she also knew that it was just a dream. A big hero like Master 8 should have forgotten himself long ago. To be more realistic, this Master Li Heza should also be a great hero. Not because of his superior strength, but because of his persistence at the most critical moment. He resolutely said, live and eat, what is the difference between animals and beasts? In that scene, Lu Ying knew that he could never forget his whole life. How many monks in Kangnan can do it? Actually, it's okay to swallow that heart. Lu Ying was a pity that such a good opportunity. Ye Kong laughed, would you like to see me like the fat man Zhu Shun, and carry a big coffin wherever you go? By that time your father will have a long life, and my son-in-law will also carry the coffin on his back. Coffins, and promotion. The little Nu Xiu laughed at him, shoved someone, and said, my father doesn't want you to be a son-in-law. How could Lu Ying let him rub it there, and quickly pushed him away, angrily, don't be serious, there are many zombies outside. Oh, my uncle. Lu Ying then remembered the two uncles, and hurried to the morgue opposite, pushed open the lid of the sarcophagus, and found that both Wan Yang and Li Wei seemed to sleep. And Ye Kong quickly put away the storage bags of the two corpses of the dead corpse, which followed him. Ye Kong erased the knowledge on the storage bags, took out his golden shield and broadsword, and simply scanned the items inside. These guys don't have much magical instruments. The storage bags are filled with weird elixir, or the organs of the dead are very disgusting. However, there are a lot of spiritual stones. It seems that Monk Yinzong is still very rich. There are thousands of spiritual stones in the ancestors of Jidan, and there are more than 3,000 in Zhu Shun. However, these are not important. In the corner of the storage bag, there are some white jade pieces and a green square jade card. When Yehalo moved, he took out the jade card and explored it with spiritual knowledge. Suddenly someone looks happy. Please wake them up, Lu Ying shouted from the morgue at this time. I'm not polite, the seniors don't shout anymore. Ye Kong laughed and joked, and quickly put Yuchan back again. Then he walked into the opposite stone house. I saved you with my lips and tongue. Could it be you want me to talk to them again? Then you will kiss them. Ye Kong certainly didn't kiss them. Ye Kong had a lot of elixir. Lian Ruolan gave him a lot of elixir at first. Everything was bad. The only bad thing was that elixir inspired the monk to clear his body. So immortal. Therefore, you must wait for a while before feeding the elixir. Of course, Wan Yang and Li Wei also had their teeth locked, and Ye Kong was not as polite to them as Xian Yushiu. They directly pried open their mouths with a device and threw elixir into them. Before the uncles were awake, Lu Ying sat on an empty sarcophagus and asked, Li, brother, how do you think, use your mouth to detoxify me? Ye Kong knew that a good opportunity for intimacy had come again, and sat down next to each other, saying, I heard a story of a sleeping beauty when I was a kid, saying that a princess looks very beautiful, she has a stepmother, is a witch, this witch I'm very jealous of her beauty. In the dark room, as someone's story, the two shadows got closer and closer, and their eyes became extremely bright. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 454. Four so-called magical powers. But I was afraid, and that was what I wanted to see. Li Wei got up, thanked for his life-saving favor, and congratulated the two for agreeing, saying that Lu Ying was too shy to see anyone. Then she remembered that she could hear other people talking about the corpse of the corpse Yinzong, and she was almost heard by the words of Li Hizi and Li Hizi. Then Wan Yang woke up and he heard the voice of Li Hizi, but what he couldn't understand was how Lu Ying hooked up with this Li Hizi. Wan Yang was thinking of a little girl's nun. Hearing her warmth with others, of course, he was very angry. After all, it was him who saved him, and his life-saving benefactor, so he woke up first, but did not move. When Li Wei got up, he followed. Everyone woke up and told each other the situation. It turned out that after Li Wei and Wan Yang came down, they encountered the grey-clad corpse Yinzong Jidan's ancestor, and he was captured and put into the coffin. Originally, the two men had no hope of life. How strong the old ancestor of Jidan was, even if there was only one elder Jidan in their family. Even if the elder Jidan of his own family came, he would not be able to fight others. The ancestor of the corpse Yinzong also had a silver body. Therefore, Wan Yang and Li Wei did not want someone to die. I thought I was going to die, but who knew that he was saved by someone who looked down on him, and this person was still his own rival. Wan Yang felt that it was better to die. After listening to Lu Ying's story about her and Li Hizi's downfall, Wan Yang's first thought was contempt. Your black cricket is just luck, and the old ancestors of Jidan were just killed by their own people, otherwise it is yours Ziawei, can you save us? You want to save us? Dream. Wan Yang was also fainted by jealousy, and even expected others not to save him. When he heard that Li Hizi didn't swallow the heart, he had a second thought, you idiot, you silly. A silver corpse equivalent to Monk Jidan, oh my god. Not to mention the heart of a living person, the stool of a living person, I swallow it without thinking. And that Li Wei screamed, what about that heart? You don't want me. I'm not afraid, what? Broke. My god, do you know that if you have one more Danzi period, your strength will increase? How many? Then Li Wei and Wan Yang both rushed out and wanted to see if there was any possibility of recovery. Lu Ying looked at her two uncles' hammers and feet, and she felt that Li Hizi was not simple. Few monks could reject this temptation. Lu Ying believes that people like his uncle, in order to increase their strength, will be like Zhu Shun, killing his wife and uncle, but Li Hizi will never. She followed Li Hizi to the opposite morgue, and took the initiative to hold Li Hizi's hand. In the mortuary room, Wan Yang was distressed looking at the thin heart. If he had the silver corpse, he would become the owner of Wanjia. And Li Wei even lowered his head, and walked around that piece of blood like a wild dog, hoping to shovel it up and eat. Looking at her unhealthy uncle, and then looking at the calm Li Hizi, Lu Ying was very pleased. She pulled the sleeve of Li Hizi and whispered, can't you let them do this? Of course, they are just too struggling for strength, and fascinated Ye Kong took a step forward, yelling with a voice full of spiritual power. It's a charm, it's not Shengsheng Avenue, I will never look at it. With a loud roar, Li Wei shook, Li Wei's whole body shook, and his lost heart returned instantly. Yeah, these corpses, etc., although it helps to improve their strength, but after all, it is not Xiantu Avenue. I have never heard who plays corpses and becomes immortals. Why are you so excited and so upset? Li Daiyu, I've been taught. Li Wei hurried over to salute, sincerely salute. Ye Kong's sentence can be said to benefit him for life. Every time he faces various choices, he will first ask himself heart, which side is Xianxia Avenue? The same words have different effects in different people's hearts. That Wan Yang was also shocked by the whole body, converging his mind, and then calmed down. But he didn't thank the black-faced monk, instead he thought it was even more ridiculous. Xianxian Avenue. How many people in the world can rise to immortality? Have you just built the second floor of the base to discuss Xianxian Avenue? Be a real person. Don't talk nonsense about her mother, saying those are useless, as long as I can improve my strength and let me eat anything. Wan Yang snorted and gave someone a glance. But at a glance, he was stunned. I saw the black scorpion around him, and suddenly there was a faint tinge of seven-colored qi. The scent was clean and sacred, and the scent surrounded Li Hizi, as if the seven-color smoke was lingering around him. Lu Ying was startled by the sudden sight and asked, "What's wrong with him?" "Don't touch him," Li Wei quickly hurried over Lu Ying and said, "If I'm not mistaken, he was aware of the sentence just because he reminded us just now." Supernatural power? What does it mean? Lu Ying couldn't help asking when he heard the word for the first time. Li Wei laughed. The so-called supernatural power is a spiritual master who understands the Tao and uses his own understanding of the Tao to combine his own situation to create some powerful spells. Generally speaking, the monks in the gas refinement period, one foot is still at the door of Xiaxian Road, so it won't create magical powers. It's normal that you haven't heard of it. When the foundation period is established, the monks have officially embarked on the Xiaxian Avenue, and it is possible to create magical powers. However, this situation is very rare. However, the monks in the foundation period have just embarked on the road to seek the immortal path. After Dan, he will gradually have magical powers. It is very rare to build magical powers on the second floor of a base like Li Hizi's Taoist friends. Looking at Lu Ying's amazed expression, he said again, "In fact, you should not be so surprised. The magical power said that Suanhu is actually a spell, just like the fireball you learned, but a special spell. Just this, the emergence of this kind of spell varies from person to person, and can be learned by everyone. Not everyone is the same. I don't know what kind of magical powers Li Hizi's Taoism has realized." Wow, comprehend the laws of heaven. Despite Li Wei's explanation, Lu Ying was still very surprised. Raising his eyes to look at Ye Kong, he saw that his body was as imaginary as he was surrounded by the sorrowful atmosphere, and the imagination was constantly changing. In fact, when Ye Kong awakened Li Wei and Wan Yang like a lion roar, he suddenly felt a throbbing heart, seeming to realize, and suddenly felt a sense of openness in his heart. The five-color Reiki cyclone in Kikai rotates extremely softly, and the Reiki in the body also swims back and forth in an abnormal way. The five spiritual forces collide with each other without disturbing each other. In the end, the earth's spiritual power slowly prevailed. In fact, with Ye Kong's cultivation, understanding of the rules of the heavens and the earth is still superficial, not the kind of epiphany or immortality. However, he has the insight of the earth people, and can still touch some of the obvious rules. Everything is heavenly, and it's not so difficult to understand, Ye Kong replied, turning around and going out. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 455. 455 Lushan Clause. The morgue and mortuary are built on a slightly higher platform. Ye Kong was standing outside the house, looking up at the countless lordless zombies below him. His eyes were empty, as if he had seen everything, but he had not seen anything. His expression was bewildered, the sleeves were windless and automatic, and the seven-colored qi of his body was as if surrounded by fairy light. Lu Ying walked out uneasily, standing behind him far away, and Li Wei followed. Wan Yang looked jealously outside and patted his head hard, cursing, "Damn, it's a stupid man to have a stupid blessing. Lao Tzu hasn't realized any magical powers in the middle of the foundation. This kid just said something. It's amazing how magical things can be created, eyes do nt look. Personality determines destiny." In a simple sentence, Ye Kong realized his magical power. Li Wei has learned a lot from this life. When Wan Yang heard this sentence, it was tantamount to not hearing it, but resentment toward Tiandao, so that throughout his life, he did not break through the bottleneck in the middle of the foundation. Well, let's see what kind of magic power this silly black egg has created. After a long time, Ye Kong finally awakened from that feeling of void, and with his soberness, the seven-colored qi surrounding the body gradually dissipated. This annoyed Ye Kong Zhong. If there were no outsiders behind him, he would meditate and absorb the suffocating air. This is fairy. Although I do nt know what use it is, Ye Kong knows that this thing is absolutely super good. If you find a way to use it, it will be of great use. But to shock the world, Ye Kong still didn't suck. Knowing that the little girl behind was paying attention to herself, Ye Kong smiled back. Li Wei quickly stepped up and said, "Li Daiyu, congratulations on your epiphany, creating magical powers, and getting closer to Xiantu Avenue." Lu Ying also came up and asked, "Li, Heze, what magical power did you create? Let's open our eyes." Ye Kong laughed. "With my cultivation, I can only perceive the fur of heaven, and the magical powers created are just ordinary." Ye Kong said, waving his sleeves. "I saw a huge yellow hand suddenly appeared in the sky in front of me. The palm of the giant hand is downward, the 5 fingers naturally bent downward, and the palm of the hand is hollow, as if holding a round hoe. Then he dropped his big hand and covered 3 stone deadlocks on the ground. With 5 fingers on the ground, the fingertip stone pillars are generally inserted into the ground, and then, the palm sinks slowly, holding the heads of the 3 zombies as if kneading the dough. The movements of the giant hand were stunned, and Ye Kong was a black line in his forehead. What a magical thing, too gentle. Is it a body massage for zombies?" However, the last move of the giant hand did not disappoint him. I saw the giant hand rubbing a few times and suddenly pressing down hard. Boom, with the sound of ground, the 3 zombies below were instantly crushed into dust, and a large hole was squeezed out of the ground of the ore. The magical power really is amazing. It is a lot bigger than ordinary spells, Li Wei couldn't help but say enviously. And Lu Ying looked at the man with great power, and even smiled and asked the name of this supernatural power. Ye Kong felt the magical power and naturally knew the name of the magical power. Claws of Lushan. Hearing these 4 words, everyone couldn't help laughing. Li Wei shook his head and smiled, "Li Daiyu is really extraordinary. The magical powers he created are so unique. No wonder I see that giant hand as if rubbing a woman, ha ha, ha ha." No, Ye Kong's eyes widened. Wan Yang even followed up and said, "Why not? The claws of Lushan have illusions," saying that a century ago, a general named Lushan from Angwo was so powerful that he recognized the queen in the palace as a goddess. They often went in and out of the palace to do the same thing. On one occasion, Lushan said that he would eat the milk of the queen. While they were playing, Lushan's fingers scratched the queen's X-room. It didn't last long, and it was finally passed by the eunuch. After that, the hand that grabbed the woman's milk was called Lushan's claw. Ye Kong fainted. I didn't expect that there was also Mount Anlu in this Kangnan continent, but fortunately it wasn't Yang Gaifei, but then again, Mount Anlu would not be missing in any world. Lu Ying hid aside, giggling with flushed faces. "Who is Heze? You are so bad, you like to touch people there, and now creating a supernatural power is so insignificant." Ye Kong shook his head and sighed, "This magical power is really a combination of monk characteristics, which varies from person to person. Whoever plays what kind of bird, Li has such a magical power, but it is appropriate. Li Wei continued to laugh, but Li Daiyu, don't use this hand to rub sister Lu Ying, she can't stand your last pressure. Lu Ying heard the shame, and before he finished speaking, he rushed to serve. Looking at them in a ball, Wan Yang felt depressed, took out the flying sword in his hand, and controlled the flying sword to kill those unknown stone stiffeners, as if all the stone stiffeners were this Li Heze, click, kill one and click again. At the same time, he also shouted, Brother Li. Since this is happening, then we will quickly kill these zombies and go back to the teacher's gate early. Yes, Li Wei and Lu Ying knew why he was annoyed. After all, it was him who came out this time, and the two did not dare to make trouble. They both took out flying swords and stood on a high platform to kill Shizong. Watching them one by one, Yekong smiled lightly and said, when are you going to kill like this? Let me come. Wan Yang shouted, how is Li Daiyu going to be killed? It depends on your claws of Lushan Mountain. Although Yekong saved his life and created magical powers in his face, he still looked down. A foundation building monk, killing zombies, am I fast? I'm in the middle of building, 5 floors. Yekong smiled lightly, and without arguing with him, took out a 5 thunder curse, threw the tactics, and threw it out. Burst. There was a loud noise, and I saw a white, blue-armed thick electric snake that seemed to tear open the space, fell from the sky, and hit a zombie wandering in the center of the square. The zombie body immediately formed an elliptical photoelectric group. There are countless electric lights on the surface of the group. Then, the light burst, and 5 electric rays scattered. 5 more photoelectric groups were formed, and then burst again, and 25 electro-optical rays shot again. Repeatedly, you can see that numerous electromagnets in the square are swimming and tearing, countless bright electro-optic clusters are forming and bursting. The scene can be described as grand and magnificent, and the visual impact is not ordinary. Seeing the countless shiny electric mans on the field, like swords and scary snakes, the number was countless. Wan Yang's face was ashes, Li Wei's eyes widened, and Lu Ying was even more surprised. I've never seen such a powerful spell. Yekong smiled faintly, waiting for the buddy's subordinate high-level electric property spell to come out. That is the real power. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 456. 4 or 6 mine owner donated ore. A 5 thunder curse solved most of the zombies. The rest of the people worked together to solve it, and they killed them after a while. These miners have been refined into zombies, and there is no possibility of surviving as adults, they can only be killed to avoid harm to the future. Then everyone came to the teleportation front. Yekong took out instant jade, and just inserted it. Wan Yang entered impatiently. Yekong hurriedly urged Lu Ying to pass, but Lu Ying still did not leave, saying, although these zombies have been killed, the remains, as well as the grey-clad old man and fat man Zhu Shun who fell into the Huangxiu pond, will probably become a zombie and kill. Yekong didn't talk nonsense to her, and immediately pushed her into the teleportation array, causing the little girl to call someone barbaric. Li Wei really understood Ye's purpose, knowing that he was afraid that Wan Yang would pass by first, and what kind of poison ambush was set up there, so this was to make Lu Ying stare. Li Daiyu, it's all my family to walk with you, Li Wei laughed. But Yekong didn't want him to stay, and laughed, I'll arrange the funeral here, you should go up first. Li Wei knew what the boy had in secret, so he laughed, I'll get on first then, brother Wan Yang, don't worry about him, he has the heart and the courage, I'll show you and hold him. Li Wei saw Yekong's generous use of means and his ability to reach the sky. He had already guessed that this man was by no means an ordinary casual practitioner, and he was probably the core disciple of the famous school, so he also knew him. Yekong patted him on the shoulder and said, thank you. I will speak to Li Hezi in the future if I need help. In fact, Yekong asked them to go up first. The purpose was to put a magical spell. Of course, they couldn't see it. After Li Wei went up, Yekong took out a half-strength psychic explosion, quickly filled in the last stroke, and then grabbed the instant jade and got into the teleportation array. Yekong is still very careful, so he moves quickly. As soon as Li Wei arrives, he arrives. He cannot leave time for others to deal with him. This Wan Yang and Li Wei are all acquainted, Lu Yingxiu is low, and he must not put his life in the hands of others. Fairy road seeks, thorns are crowded, traps are dense, and carelessness is a mighty abyss. Yekong came out and released the newly learned Lushan claws to destroy the teleportation array. Then he pulled Lu Ying's hand and said, "Go." The teleportation is just a few miles below this layer of soil. If it explodes, it must be like an earthquake. Although it would not kill them, it would not be so easy to be buried in this mine. Yekong took Lu Ying in front of him and walked away quickly. Li Wei quickly followed, but Wan Yang, who came out first, did not agree. He was scolded as a timid black mouse, and he was afraid of a hare when all the zombies were killed. When Wan Yang walked back for a normal distance, he felt that something was wrong. A big explosion occurred deep in the ground, and the whole mine suddenly shook, huge or rolled, the mine collapsed, and raging groundwater surged up. Wan Yang was frightened, and while fleeing quickly, he used a flying sword to resist the falling ore and cut the blocked passage. When he was covered in mud, he was embarrassed to come up, and saw someone looking at him with joy. However, Wan Yang did not dare to attack. The big explosion just now was apparently made by this boy. Wan Yang believes that the only ancestor of his family who came to Dan came in person and could not make such a big movement. The boy's strength was horrible. Although Wan Yang hated, he could not reveal it. He took off his sword and smiled bitterly. Li Dai really means to the sky, dare to ask what just exploded just now, how powerful it is. This question is a bit absurd. The monk's methods are kept secret. If the whole cards let you know, what should you do if you have prepared? However, Yekong saw that Li Wei and Lu Ying were very curious, and laughed. This treasure is the Xianxia mine that was originally purchased at the Yi family firm. This object is the day when the monk passed Xianxia. The power of thunderstorms is really amazing, and I am using it for the first time. Yekong said this lightly. Several people were astounded. Xianxia. Only the monks in the refining period have a small tianjia. Now the Kangnan continent's old babies are all over the world. For thousands of years, no monks have crossed the small tianjia. How many years has this shale been kept? How precious is it? Li Wei lamented that rich people are really rich. If you deal with powerful enemies, you can use this thunder too. But that's cleaning up the site. Are you so extravagant? Give me Xianxia chalet. I'll go and clean up the site. I'll make sure to chop and shred them for you one by one. And Xianxia cares about the price. She has no concept of Xiao Tian's robbing. She said that I would also buy a self-defense if I had money. She asked, how many spirit stones is this shark? Well, Ye did not know how much the money was, and the invisible needle Fu Bao had already asked him for 15,000. This little gangster thunderstorm has hundreds of thousands. 100,000 spirit stones, Yekong replied casually. Lu Ying almost fell over and heard, my God, I heard that right, 100,000 spirit stones. Too extravagant. Such a waste. Do you think spirit stones are grown in your home? If you have money, save a little. You have to take care of your account later. The girl is also very strange. An hour ago, she still frowned at someone, and now she wants to take care of his account. At this time, the waiting mine owner Diao Xianbin and others came up and saluted Wan Yang. Although he was embarrassed here, he was the main person sent by Huangzhou Wanjia. Thank you Master Wanda for helping me wait to get rid of the evil. Wanyang didn't even dare to offend Yekong at this moment. Who knew that this kid had a few slaying thunderstorms? If he throws one at Wanjia, let alone Wanjia, Huangzhou City can be blasted into powder. Don't thank me, it's all the credit of Li He's real person. Wanyang waved. In fact, Diao Xianbin had already seen this. He hurriedly saluted Yekong again, and then signaled that a large box was brought up. When I opened it, it turned out that there were several thousand-year-old fine iron ore with a large child's head. After a few rounds of refining and quenching, the ordinary fine iron ore can make items for the cultivator. However, the power of such fine iron is not strong enough, and it can only be hard enough. The main thing is that the aura contained in this fine iron is limited and fixed. But the Millennium fine iron is different. This iron can be felt in the palm of your hand, and you can feel the flowing flow of aura, which is very suitable for making magic instruments. It should be noted here that the so-called Millennium fine iron does not mean that the iron has been formed over the millennium. In fact, even ordinary iron ore has been formed for thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. The millennium refined iron means that after the iron ore mutated, it reached the millennium and absorbed the metallic aura of the millennium. The distribution is like this: Wanyang, Li Wei, Lu Ying each one, and the remaining 5 were obtained by Yet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 457. 457 Immortals. Everyone did not care about it. After all, it was Yekong's credit. If it were not for him, several people would have been left behind. In fact, Ye has no idea about Millennium refined iron. After all, he is not a poor man. There are a lot of companies in this iron smelter. They can be bought with money, and the price is not expensive. Of course, the word not expensive is for a black person. Yekong loaded up 5 large iron ore. What he thought was that this iron ore was good for grinding the gold-winged ants. If Wanyang Li Wei knew someone's thoughts, he would have to swear extravagance. For such a good millennial concentrate, it would be too bad for you to feed termites. But if the gold-winged ants knew what they thought, they would sneer scornfully, take it away early, and you can eat this kind of thing. Laozi ate black gold stone for 3 years, then it was delicious. Let us eat it without refining and refining this millennium. When are we ants in a mountain nest? The people separated the iron ore. Wanyang and Li Wei had to return to Shimen and return to life. Lu Ying had to reluctantly leave. Yekong had to inquire about his mother's news next time, and he could not delay for a long time, so he comforted him. Lu Ying said that she would go to Huangzhou some days, and she would definitely go to Wanjia to find her. The 3 of them had just left. Yekong also threw a flying sword, and wanted to fly back to Kink village, but the mine owner Diao Xianbin called again. Immortal Master stays on. What else? Yekong asked frowning. Diao Xianbin hurriedly kneeled down and said, although the demon evil has been removed, the miner's corpse poison has not been cleared. Please ask the Immortal Master to rescue those miners. Yekong was right to think about it, but he was also very distressed. There are thousands of these miners. Even if they have some elixir, there are not so many. If you kill it with your own immortality, what do you get one by one? Besides, this corpse poison is contagious. You just cured one, and when he turned around, he became infected again, and it was endless. I went back to Kink village to discuss the method with my partner, and then said, you can go to Kink village to find me if you have something, Yekong said, and took off with his sword. As soon as Yekong had left, the owner of the mine hurriedly ordered a few guys behind him, quickly return to the city and send your children from all your families together. Those guys didn't understand yet, with doubts on their faces. Miner, the poison of the corpse is not clear. Let the children come here to get infected. Let them camp out of Kink village for fear of infection. Do you fools, don't you want to have a fairy at home? As soon as Diao Xianbin said, a few guys immediately understood, oh, is it to let the teacher check the qualifications? However, they immediately worried, this Li He's Xianxia seems to have no interest in a few thousand-year-old concentrate, and he is afraid he will not. Diao Xianbin said, this Li He's immortal master is very powerful. Several monks in Wanjia respect him very much, and he has taken the initiative to help. He must be good, so I want to give him the 3 things we dug out. That thing is so glorious, and the immortal master must like it. If there are other immortal masters, I dare not take it out. Those guys nodded one after another, during which another said, the owner of the mine, the goddess in our village is also very strange. When I heard that I was coming to the immortal, they all hid in Hushan, even Deluxialu also followed went. Diao Xianbin waved his hand and said, no matter what they do, our goddess doctor is not thin to everyone. Deluxialu is very diligent and capable, so we don't talk much. Yekong had already flown to Kink village at this time, so he placed a prohibition and told the details to his ancestor Huan Quan. When it was heard that the dead Yin sect had studied the construction method of the teleportation array, even Huan Quan's ancestors were very surprised. Even in my era, it was very popular to be able to arrange the teleportation array. You must know that the most complex and difficult to study of all spells is the space system spell, Huan Quan ancestor said. Yekong nodded. That's right. You see, now everyone can only use storage bags. If I would make storage bracelets and storage rings, then I would send them out. It's huge. Huan Quan's ancestor laughed. You stupid boy, if you don't have much money, just remember to make a storage ring. Those things are birds. Real space spells, when cast, can not only teleport, but also tear the space. To open up space, that's a shocking and exciting miracle. It's not like making a few storage rings. Yekong could not help nodding, thoughtful. It is said that the height is different, and the vision is different. To understand the avenue, you must constantly improve your vision. Vision and vision are wide, so that you can see more laws of heaven. Thinking of this, Yekong told him about his magical power again, and Huan Quan's ancestor laughed loudly. Yes, somebody said annoyed, well, don't laugh, I didn't expect that. I realized such a chicken-shaped spell, the movement is so slow, and I rubbed it so gently, it's a shame. The savvy opponent, take advantage of this time, runs away. Huan Quan's ancestor was a more exaggerated smile, and after he smiled, he turned his face and said, only monks, no magic. Even if the spells no longer appear to be useful, in some special moments, if you use them skillfully, you will have unexpected effects. Just like you had previously practiced the lowest level spells such as fireball and object control. At the beginning, you still didn't think it was fart. I think now you should feel that there was no white practice in those 4 months. Yekong nodded. When he was practicing these low-level spells, he really had a lot of complaints. He thought that these spells were too low-level, useless, and he could use all kinds of spells, as well as various spells. Is it necessary to use the small spells? It wasn't until they really started to cultivate, that they became more and more aware of the benefits that they had brought to themselves in the first few months. Especially in the scene of the martial arts Nebi, Lilian was met, that is, pure comparison, both sides are more proficient in object control. My ancestor, you are right, boy, I have been taught, Yekong said sincerely. Huan Quan's ancestor nodded with satisfaction. Actually, magical powers are a kind of magic. Although this kind of magical powers are masterless, they also need to be practiced. They are familiar with the practice and perfected in the practice. I believe in this kind of soil. The magic power of attributes, its role and power are definitely not just what you see. Oh, you can still be familiar and perfect, that is to say, you can also improve and change, Ye Kong realized. Huang Quan's ancestor nodded. It can be said that, in the case of fireball, some people send large fireballs, some people send small fireballs, some people can only send one fireball at a time, but some people can send one, it goes out, but someone can make it burn for a long time, or even burst. In short, any spell can be improved, due to the different powers of different operators. Think of a 3-layer Yuan and a 3-layer gas refining, can they fire the same fireball? The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 458. 4, 5, 8 Foundation. Huang Quan's ancestor was right, Ye Kong couldn't help nodding his head, and groaned for a while before he said, yes, I can't let this supernatural power look like a chicken rib. This is supernatural power after all, it's better than ordinary magic. Powerful, and this supernatural power has just been created. No one knows whether it can evolve, and what it will look like after evolution. Huang Quan's ancestor then nodded. Sunzi can teach. However, a word from Ye later made him almost faint. Ye Kongdeo said, don't be fooled by the name of its Lushan claw. Who knows, will it change from a milk sucker to a salty pig hand, a wet guy hand, or a yin hand? Huang Quan's ancestors were stunned, and added for a moment, finally, hands. Ye Kong laughed, wow, hello BT. No more BT than you BT. Really, creating such inferior supernatural powers, my ancestors are ashamed of your master. Huang Quan ancestors reached out and said, come here. Ye Kong froze for a moment, and Huang Quan's ancestor said angrily, how to arrange the teleportation array, do you still have to make it? Ye Kong said with a smile, it's not for you, even a lot of instant jade seized this time can be given to you, but I have seen the jade card, the content is too complicated, I'm afraid it was given to you, you need to meditate and study. But the key now is how to save those miners who have been infected with corpse poison, and wait until you figure out a method, and then you will not be late. Save those miners. Huang Quan's ancestor nodded and said, this is easy to do, the monk who placed the corpse poison has been killed, and the corpse poison has also become an ownerless thing, so it will not be copied and infected, as long as you put the venom in those miners' bodies was cleaned up. Ye Kong smiled bitterly. But my elixir is not much. There are thousands of miners. How can I have so much elixir? If I go to find materials to temporarily refining alchemy, my alchemy technology is probably too late. Then use the qi in your body, clean up one by one, although the method is a little clumsy, but it works. Ye Kong thought about it, there was no other way, he had to do it according to the plan. Huang Quan's ancestors took Yuchan to meditate, and Ye Kong began to clean up the venom of the miners one by one. For those miners, there is no need to mouth, just press your hand on the miner's pulse, and the corpse poison. However, there are too many miners, so I don't know when they will get it, so Ye Kong thought of a way to let them put up a human chain, each person's left hand caught the pulse of another person's right hand, and then Ye Kong used to clear it once. This corpse poison is not harmful to Ye Kong, but it is still very harmful to these mortal miners. Every miner infected by the corpse poison appears exhausted after the corpse poison is cleaned up. And the old doctor Bai Xiaotian prepared a lot of herbal soups for the miners to remove the poison of the corpses, and the girl Xiaoying also helped. Although he is busy and has no benefit, Ye Kong is still very happy. It is also a very happy thing to get thanks from others. I don't know if it was because of the good mood or the accumulation of ethics. He even felt that he was about to break through. In fact, Ye Kong had already reached the top of the second floor of the base in the Juzwen Lingling formation. He may break through at any time, but he was worried that the spiritual force cyclone would tilt, so he restrained himself from practicing, who knows in the end still coming. Ye Kong didn't know if it was better to break through or insist on not breaking through, So he called the ancestor Huang Quan, who was immersed in space spells. Huang Quan's ancestors have not practiced the 5 elements ascension scriptures, nor have they produced spiritual cyclones in Ki, but he thought or said, break through, since the opportunity comes, don't let it escape. Yekong nodded, yes. Now that the opportunity has come, don't let the opportunity escape easily, even if it is a small chance. With this idea in mind, Yekong took the time to clean up all the corpses in the miner's body. Then he quickly released the amulets and entered the meditation level. This sitting took 3 days. During Yekong's meditation, the children of Diao's family and several other miners' homes came. Kink village resumed the excitement again, dispersed the corpses, the dead miners also compensated, and the iron ore began again. Running. In a large courtyard in Kink village, the owner of the mine, Diao Xianben, was looking down and thinking. If he didn't know what to calculate, he would see a man running outside. Diao mine owner, Li Xianxia is out. Oh, upon hearing the news, Diao Xianben looked happy and stood up excitedly. He walked back and forth twice and arranged, quickly call all the disciples to come here, I'll ask the immortal master. As soon as Diao Xianben was about to go out, the man said again, oh, Xiaolu just came down and spoke, saying that they had a way to get rid of the corpse poison. Please ask the mine owner to mention them to the immortal master. Diao Xianben is funny, can you mortals still have no enemies with the immortal master, and these immortal masters are not necessarily the offenders you have offended? As soon as the goddess and the big and small Lu came to the mine, Diao Xianben saw that they must be here to avoid trouble or trouble. At the beginning, Diao Xianben was also worried that they were puppets. Later I found out that these people, yes, the goddess doctor is even more amazing in medicine. You don't need to drink medicine. You just need to stick the note. It is loved by the miners. So I lived there for a few years. The goddess doctor treated people. Finding work, they are in a good situation, they are already small heads. Since they don't want to come forward, Diao Xianben doesn't think too much about these things that don't concern him. One thing is worse than one thing. He just wants to cultivate a few cultivators among his children. When Diao Xianben came to the Beijia Medical Museum, Yekong Zheng spoke to Huang Quan's ancestors. I didn't expect that when I broke through to the 3rd floor of the building base, the slightly offset spiritual force cyclone returned to the center. It seems that this thing can still repair itself, Yekong said cheerfully. It seems to be a happy event. Huang Quan's ancestor nodded, but he also said, although your spiritual power cyclone has been repaired, you can continue to cultivate, but you still have to find a way to increase the metallic spiritual power as soon as possible. You are now just building the base 3 floors, if later revised higher, the spiritual force cyclone will be larger. I am afraid it will be more difficult to balance. Yekong's smile suddenly sank, and he nodded, yes, but this is really hard to think of. Huang Quan's ancestors also thought about it for a long time, and there was no answer. Then he remembered another thing and said, when you closed the day before yesterday, the ancestors of Huangzhou Wanjia Wanjinkan visited in person. Thank you for your help. See, when you break through the retreat, you leave an invitation back first. Yekong picked up the jade camouflage and said, it's been long enough here. Let's get ready to leave. On the way back, we just went to Wanjia to return a gift. While they were talking, the mine owner Diao Xianben came in and bowed down as soon as he entered. Congratulations to Xianxia for a new breakthrough, even God will send you a gift. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 459. 459 Fine Iron Soul. Yekong heard Diao Xianben say this, and laughed. The owner of Diao Mining got up to speak. Diao Xianben stood up and then replied, Jian Xianxia, just as the immortal master was out of the gate, suddenly the sky was full of gold and Xiangrui was released, so I sent someone almost, and the miners came back and said that the treasure was dug under. That's why I came here, and wanted to give that strange treasure to the immortal master. In fact, Diao Xianbin had dug up the gadget long ago, and now that's just a lip service. He doesn't know what the thing is. If the immortal master saw that it was not worth it, he kept a garbage for more than 10 years. Will be joked, even unreasonable immortal master will be angry. I said that the treasure that was just dug up was rubbish, and I didn't understand it. You should take care of it. Ye Kong listened for a moment and looked at Huang Quan's ancestors. Both knew that the mine owner was pure nonsense. What kind of golden light burst into Tianxiang Grui? Lao Tzu did not feel a cultivator, you immortal feel. Ye Kong's face sank, and he nodded at the table and said, Diao mining owner, Li has the most hate in life to lie and maliciously deceive you. If you have something to say, don't tell me those things that are out of bounds. Diao Xianbin quickly knelt and said in a frightened manner, the immortal master Ming Jian did not lie, just now, but there are treasures dedicated to the immortal master, but they were not dug recently, but in the mine more than 10 years ago. Oh? Then go and see Ye Kong, and Huang Quan's ancestors followed Diao Xianbin to his place, and Xiaoying followed. Although Diao Xianbin is the rich man of this place, he is not his home here, and the residence is very ordinary. It is a large house, blue bricks, and several welcome trees in front of the door. When Ye Kong and others entered the main hall and sat down, Diao Xianbin hurriedly ordered people to take the baby. Soon, Ye Kong saw a team of strong men escorting a square box into it. The box was lowered and everyone retreated, and Diao Xianbin carefully opened the box. Ye Kong saw 3 black fist-sized black nuggets in the box, irregularly shaped nuggets, black shiny, and the flat fractures could be learned by light, like a black mirror. Ye Kong stretched out his hand, and when he touched his finger, he could feel the aura flowing inside the black ore. This aura was hundreds of times larger than the Millennium Fine Iron sent by Diao Xianbin before. Ye Kong held one of them in his hand, and felt that the iron ore with a large fist was heavy by hundreds of pounds. No wonder this small box required several strong men to carry it in. Although Ye Kong didn't understand what it was, he knew it was a good thing, and that Millennium Fine Iron was not a grade. He didn't know, but Huang Quan's ancestors knew. Huang Quan's ancestor also took one, and after a little look, he said to Ye Kong with a sense of God, receive it, a very good thing, you can use it later. Ye Kong busy asked what this thing was, could it be 10,000 years of fine iron? Huang Quan's ancestor said, this is called a fine iron monster, but it is the veins of iron ore. All fine iron ore will have this thing. But this fine iron monster also has good and bad, and some of the grades are relatively low. The mines are relatively inferior, and the 3 fine iron monsters are very good. No wonder the iron ore produced here is so good. Oh, it's the vein of the iron ore, the old mother of this iron ore, but what's the use of it? Ye Kong asked. Stupid boy, what else can you do? The smelter, the old ancestor Huang Quan cursed again and again. The Millennium Fine Iron is a good material for making magical instruments. This fine iron spirit is a good material for making magical magic. Especially the main material of the sword embryo used as the magic weapon of the flying sword system, its strength is much higher than other materials. Ye Kong heard the great joy, his future destiny magic weapon is Fijian. With these good things as the material of the sword embryo, of course he can't miss it. Ye Kong and Huang Quan's ancestors communicated with consciousness, and Diao Xianbin was inaudible. He said to himself, these 3 pieces of ore not only have an extraordinary appearance, but also have very peculiar characteristics. In 3 or 5 months, good iron ore will be generated around it, so I clean it up several times a year. Ye Hollow Road, this is a vein, which is equivalent to the old lady of this mine. Of course, iron ore will naturally be produced. However, he would not say to Diao Xianbin, but just nodded and said, Diao mining owner, this thing is good, I will accept it, as your love. Li thanked. I think Diao mining owner must have something else, you let's just say, if he can help, Li will never quit. At the beginning, the corpse poison in this mine was so big, and Diao Xianbin did not come up with a fine iron body. At this time, can it be given away in vain? Diao Xianbin listened to brother Li He's words, and he was also very happy. He immediately knelt down and said, Li Xianxi, my Diao family also counts as Wang, but there are many people and lack of talents. For more than a century, Wen has no champion, and Wu Wu is general. Therefore, after being bullied by other families, even the ore produced was forcibly reduced in price. I would like to ask Xianxi to accept a child of the Diao family as an apprentice, in order to boost the momentum of the Diao family. Ye Kong shook his head and said, the purpose of Xianxian is to achieve the Ascension Avenue. It is not for you to show off, and it is not for everyone to cultivate. It must be a person with wisdom. Diao Xianbin said busily, I know that Xianxian will have a qualification, so I call on the children of the Diao family. If one of them has the qualification to practice, ask the Xianxi to accept it. If not, then just stop. Ye Kong laughed. I thought that when Wan Xian came to his home, my father Ye Harem was also exhausted and wanted to send a child to repair the immortal. It was so similar as if it was yesterday. I didn't expect to be here in just 7 or 8 years. Let people ask for apprenticeship. Alas, everyone said that the gods are good, but who knows how cruel they are, who can stand at the top of the pyramid, just a few people. Well, let the children of your clan come in. The children of Diao Xianbin were afraid that there would be no spiritual roots, so they called everyone in the family, men and women, young and old, all eyes full of expectation, full of tension. I think it was this kind of look when I saw Wan Xian real person. Ye Kong smiled lightly. There must be no nervousness. There is no one who has spiritual roots. It is good to have one of your hundreds of disciples, and the qualifications are good or bad, and the chance is very small. Ye Kong talked and laughed. Wasn't that true for Wan Xian? Alas, it's just a pity that you, dad, brother, you all can't see. Ye Kong sighed and checked the qualifications of the people one by one. But as Ye Kong expected, a family like the Diao family who never had an ancestor has no spiritual root at all. Diao Xianbin heard such a result, with a look of frustration, and gave away all his babies, but he didn't even find a spiritual root. Nothing was more sad than that. Ye Kong took out a few bottles of elixir and said, the owner of the mine must not be frustrated. This kind of thing is normal. Some elixir here, after taking it, not only can increase the lifespan by 20 years, but also make people sick. He is healthy, physically fit, and flexible-minded. However, this was obviously not what Diao Xianbin wanted. He pushed back to the elixir and said, Xie Xianxi is kind, and now there is only one request, and Wang Xianxi will answer. Oh, you say. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 460. 40 or 60 mine owner retention. Diao Xianbin said, at present, it is evening and the time is not too early. A banquet has been prepared for the next day. I would like to invite Xianxi to spend a night in Diao's house. It was funny to hear his request. Ye Kong originally thought he wanted to help him get revenge or something, but he didn't expect to eat and drink. Ye Kong immediately agreed, so Diao Xianbin went to arrange. Ye Kong Huan Quan ancestors, and Xiaoying girl were taken to a temporary rest. When he came to the room, Ye Kongbu put down a soundproof ban. Then he took out the iron and asked, how is this thing? My 5 flying sword magic weapons are the most powerful flying swords. Never use garbage. Materials make sword embryos. This thing is enough. Huan Quan's ancestor tilted his eyes and said, the origin of iron was produced when chaos was first opened. It was the ancestor of iron. All iron in the world came out of it. This thing is called, it is the origin of iron. But don't think about this thing. The stuff at the beginning of chaos also exists in legend. The origin of iron is the essence of fairy iron. Do NT even think about that stuff? We do NT have it in our world. I heard that there is only fairy land. Then come down, that is the iron of the day after tomorrow. That is, iron ore has gone through millions of years, and some of them began to absorb the essence of heaven and earth, and slowly gathered energy to become iron fines. Among them, there are 10,000 years of iron souls, millennium iron essences, and your 3 fine iron souls are 10,001 of the better ones of the year, and there are so many of them, so these are the sword embryos for you to make magic weapons. Yekong heard the overjoyed, and unexpectedly picked up the treasure. If Diao Xianben knew the value of this thing, I'm afraid he wouldn't give himself all 3 pieces. He put away his iron spirit and asked again, is there only one of these types of iron? I heard a master of a master craftsman said that there are many more. Huang Quan's ancestor said, I'm talking about ordinary iron. Of course, there are other irons, such as meteoric iron from outer space, star iron floating outside the planet, cold iron in the northernmost ice pole of Kangbei, chaos. The black jade iron in the depths, these irons are too scarce. We can't get them, and you can't make them. It's the fairy who created the fairy sword. Oh, that's it. Yekong nodded. He originally thought that refining magic weapons was still a distant matter for him. Later, he was reminded by Cao Guang's ancestors that it was time to start preparing materials. Coincidentally, the most basic materials came to the door. Coming. Thinking of those powerful magic weapons that the old ancestors of Jadan spit out with their mouths, Yekong couldn't help but get excited. If he had time to spit out 5 flying swords with different attributes in one breath, that would be a cow X. My ancestor, I can build the foundation successfully after 8 layers of gas refining. Can I refine the magic weapon in advance? Yekong asked again. Well, this. Huang Quan's ancestors thought for a moment, and laughed, you freak, the 5 elements of the spirit roots actually build the foundation, or the 8 layers of gas refining to build the foundation directly. No one will know that no one has done it before, and you have to figure it out yourself. But then again, it is not that the base period cannot be used to refine the destiny magic weapon. In fact, the magic weapon has great power, the spiritual knowledge required to control it is relatively high, and the magic weapon requires relatively large spirits. Finally, the magic weapon must absorb your spirit in your body. Power nourishes, so, logically, as long as the consciousness is strong, the spiritual power is strong enough, and the lasting power is enough, the use of magic weapons in the foundation period is not a magical idea. But Yekong Zheng listened in a good mood. Who knew this old boy had a big turn? But what? Huang Quan's ancestor shook his head and said, it's like learning, but all the magic weapons are self-refined, and they must be the flames of the monk. You have only a congenital fire, so how can you make a magic weapon? Yekong felt hesitated, as if a balloon had been pierced, and sighed, it doesn't work after listening to you for a long time. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed, it's not impossible. The key is that you have a fire that is more powerful than Dan fire, and then you have to send it out yourself. It's as if I didn't say that. I have a Kangbei cold fire, but it wasn't from me. You won't let me refine that thing into my body? I won't know who will refine who. Huang Quan's ancestors hit someone with a great heart, and comforted him, don't be discouraged, I think. The materials you need for the 5 flying swords are too scarce. I have never heard of many ancestors. Don't rush into any magic weapon, I'm afraid that when you get to Dan, you don't find all the materials for a flying sword. Yekong angered, you dead boy, is there such a comfort for you as a teacher? Crow's mouth, the first rule of the teacher's rule, you must not hit master. Cut master shit, I don't understand anything. Huang Quan sneered dissatisfied and said, the master is on top, I will give you a good news to comfort you. Do you know the real reason why Diao Xianbin kept you for dinner? The owner of this mine doesn't want elixir, just keep eating for himself. Yakong was puzzled just now and asked, what's the reason? Huang Quan's ancestor showed a smile that all men knew, holding the ring in one hand and extending his fingers in the other, making an indecent gesture, and smiling, please, please. Ah, Yakong glared, but then he suddenly said, oh, I want to leave the fairy seed, and maybe I will have a cultivator in the future. Alas, the owner of this trickery is also empty of mind, but doesn't he know that the cultivator is different from the mortal? The chance of pregnancy is much less than that of the mortal. Isn't he afraid that the bamboo basket will be empty? Huang Quan sighed, so what can he do? This is the only hope. The little warbler girl who was sitting around sighed, no wonder everyone has to be a fairy teacher, not only to give women away, but also to give benefits, otherwise they will not play for nothing. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed, do you think that the immortal master's effort was in vain? I don't know how happy it is, before you stay with me next time, remember to give benefits first. Xiaoying flushed and scolded, I am going to die, your master said such a thing. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed and said, at that time, master said this kind of thing to his woman, and I overheard it by the side, ha ha ha. Yakong hasn't touched a woman for a few months, but she doesn't care about those unfamiliar women. She shook her head and said, this is not good. What's so bad? Everyone has a good time. It's my best to leave the seeds. I don't blame you if no one is left. Have fun. I know you listen to me and Xiaoying humming every day. I also feel uncomfortable, so let's take the opportunity to let out the fire. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 461. 461 Mining Village. Yakong wasn't a man of pride, so he laughed, well, I don't know what kind of woman the Diao mining owner arranged for me to go, or should I let the Diao mining owner arrange one for you? In fact, Yakong was just joking, but Huang Quan's ancestor flushed and said, people want to plant. I don't have that thing, so don't harm others. No, don't you plant it, Yakong heard the big news this time. It's not seedless, the key point is that I'm still young, oh, master, I'm only 12 years old. Huang Quan's ancestor blushed and vomited. But Yakong was even stranger and asked, why does that little warbler every night? Xiaoying also flushed, and said to Huang Quan's ancestors, I blame you, it's so bad at a young age. Huang Quan's ancestor grinned, took out a blank jade card, recorded a secret method from his mind, and threw it to Yakong, saying, the double-level Dafa practice is better than the one you practice. Yakong took it, and explored with spiritual knowledge, and found that this is a dual practice method called Nyalong Rugyuju. On the day you are a fairy, the angry dragon enters the valley, and the name is so inferior. Yakong looked in again, and found that this thing is similar to the dragon and the dragon, but the only difference is that this angry dragon enters the valley has a hallucination. Functions. Well, go back and try, but I don't like hallucinations, I still like the real feeling. Yakong accepted Yukang, and Diao Xianbin from outside had already invited them to dinner. There were no one else on the wine table, just a few of them, chatting and eating until it was dark, and the owner of Diao Mining, who could not wait, was busy sending the ferry master back to the room. Yakong returned to the room. The room was clean and tidy. Even the bed was covered with brand new satin quilts. It seemed that the mine owner had taken a lot of effort. Yakong also remembered that a plump girl would sleep with her. After a while, two women came in and surprised Yakong. They looked very similar. One was slightly larger and the other was smaller. Looks are very good. The two little girls walked into the room and closed the door. The older girl walked to Yakong and said, Immortal Master, we are waiting for you to sleep. Then she jerks off Yekong's clothes. It seemed that she had been arranged before she came to take the initiative. And the little girl was more cautious and timid, standing there like a child doing something wrong. Yekong sighed and pushed away her sister's hand and said, "Go back, you are too young." The older girl hurried to her knees, and then turned around and scolded her sister. Then she said, "Immortal, please don't drive us away. Although we are young, but we are also women. I am 18 and my sister is 16. We are still virgins, we already know how to serve the Immortal Master. We know that we are mortals and are not worthy of the Immortal Master, but we only ask the Immortal Master to give us, no matter what the result. It has nothing to do with the Immortal Master. It will definitely not drag down the Immortal Master." The little girl also said, "Although we are small, but we are all Diao family members, we often see that the elders in the family are popular with others. We are all daughters and we can't help the elders to do anything. Compassionate on us and sowing us the fairy seed, neither our sisters nor the entire Diao family will forget the grace of the Immortal Master. If the Immortal Master drives us away, we will only repay the elders' upbringing." Yekong smiled bitterly. He never thought that there would be a woman kneeling and begging for XX, and she would die by force. It seems that Xianxia is really good. Since this is the case, Yekong is no longer arrogant, and he hugs right and left, thinking that he can no longer imagine it later. Yekong has been absurd several times a night. He has worked hard and can't blame him if he can keep the seeds. At daybreak the next day, the two girls woke up early and waited for Yekong to get up to freshen up. The ancestor of Huanquan rushed in with a bad smile and winked at Yekong. When I stepped out of the door, I saw Diao Xianbin waiting outside, and saw the two women quickly scolding, "Xiao Yuzili, have you served a good fairy?" The two women busily replied, "Uncle, we are ready to serve." It seems that the two women are Diao Xianbin's niece. Yekong nodded and said, "They are both very good and good. Although they are very good, but Yekong still has to go. What can't stop him from looking? Madam, the way he decides, nothing can get in the way." After dropping some elixir, Yekong and Huanquan's ancestors took the warbler and left by taking off swords. On the hill near the miners' village, among the hut, several coughs were heard one after another. At the door of a thatched house, a strong middle-aged man stood leaning against the door weakly. He coughed and said to himself, "I don't know which day, Master 8 can fly Fijian. Come back." Cough, he coughed heavily, and turned back to a man lying on the bed. "Xiao, those immortals are gone, and I saw them flying away with their swords." The man on the bed smiled bitterly and said, "What's the use of going away? I'm afraid I can't survive it. These corpses are too powerful. Without the help of the immortal," cough. A severe cough made him impossible. "Say the words below." These two men are Lu Jun and Lu Yi from the southern capital. They and Chen Juniang are hiding in this deep mountain. The most feared is the Immortal Master. So when they heard that an Immortal Master came, they all hid in the mountain. Rest assured, we'll be fine. My sister is studying the spell of corpse poison carefully. It's useless. Lu Yi, who was lying, shook his head. His eyes were full of death. Her headaches and hot brains are okay for corpses, only corpses can be cured. Lu Jun sighed, shuffled, walked slowly to the straw bed, sat down, and said, "Xiao, are you dissatisfied? Blame brother did not let you go down the mountain to treat the Immortal Master." Lu Yi did not speak, and it seemed that he had complaints. In fact, he is a little bit. Those Immortal Masters do not necessarily know Master. Why not go to the Immortal Master for treatment? Why bother to wait for death now?